Hello and welcome to the new session of Android application development. I'm Tom from SOU. In this episode, we will be looking towards the environment setup and how to develop the first ever program on Android application development. Throughout this session, we will be looking towards the review or we will review basics of Android application development and we will discuss about the required software. In next webinar after this one, we will be looking towards the practical demonstration and installation of Android application. So basically the major objective of this webinar will be the basics or requirement of the software for the development of Android application and how we can install those software on our system. The environment setup for Android application development is very essential because it is itself one of the needed thing in order to develop your application. In order to be able to develop Android application on any system or any operating system, be it Windows, Mac, or Linux, we need to have Android software development kit. I will show you on this session what are those software what we need in order to develop any kind of Android application on any of the operating system. Moving forward, let's have a look at what are the requirements of the development or what are the environment setup essential in order to develop your application on your own system. Nevertheless, JDK 5 is one of the least requirement of Android development or Android application development. We need to have JDK 5, which is one of the oldest thing in order to develop Android applications, since Android is the platform which needs the environment of Java, since Java is the programming background of Android application. As I have been telling this from the first webinar, JDK is essential for the Android. The other thing that we need is Android SDK. Software development kit of Android is one of the key of Android development or the environment of Android needs the software development kit. JRE is the other essential thing that we need. JRE 6 is the minimum requirement for the Android development. In order to develop Android application, we need to have JRE 6. ADT is the Android development tool which we need to have or we need to install in our system. And the latest one is the Android Studio, which comes in a bundle. I mean to say that the Android Studio comes along with all these fees or all these 4 requirement installed within itself. But installment of JDK is one of the essential thing in order to develop your application. Android Studio gives you every bit of simplicity, every bit of flexible environment that you need to develop or a developer needs in order to develop an Android application. So Android development is like interesting, or it becomes interesting when you have Android Studio. You can use any other IDEs in order to develop Android application, but if you use Android Studio, then you feel like you are working in major application development. without having any kind of trouble. You know, that's what you need to have. That is Android Studio in order to become uh, personal or professional Android application developer. Setting up Java may not be new thing for those who are looking forward towards the Android application development, because it is one of the uh, base that Java gives you. Because what I'm trying to say is Java gives you the base of Android application development, or anything that you want to develop uh, with the help of a Java platform. There is a need of installing and uh, creating or developing the Java environment. I mean to say, if you want to start programming for Android, you need to be able to know how to set up the class path, how to initialize the environment of Java. That gives you the setting up environment. uh, Download and install JDK5 or letter from oracle.com or from any other providers. Check for the class path, set the class path for Java, start your system ready, or make your system ready for programming with Java, so that you can be able to uh, set up environment for your Android successfully. There are different IDEs which you can use for development of Android, uh, but one of the most popular and one of the simplest way of using or moving forward with Android application development would be Android Studio. Uh, as I already said, or already I mentioned in the previous slide, that using Android Studio makes you feel perfect whenever it comes to development of Android. You can also use Eclipse or NetBeans uh, for the development of Android, but I would prefer uh, Android Studio for the development of your application, or throughout your learning phase. If you go through the Android Studio, then it would be one of the easiest and simplest way, and one of the most professional way of becoming an Android application developer. But having said this, I'm not trying to say that you cannot use Eclipse or NetBeans. You can use any of them, but during the learning phase, I would like to request you all to have Android Studio with you, because these days, professionally, people use Android Studio because it's simple, it's fast, reliable, so that and there are the error chances or the uh, mismatching of any kind of codes or any environment becomes one step more simpler. So if you use Android Studio, it'll be good for you all. So moving forward, let's have a look at how Android Studio looks, or what kind of features Android Studio gives you, or any other IDEs gives you for the development of Android. If you successfully install Android Studio on your system, then this is the first screen that you will be seeing after the installation gets completed. Uh, this shows that how you can start a new project. You can open new existing project, any existing project, check out for a project from version control. There are different other tools that I'll be showing you practically on the next session of this webinar. Uh, but in this particular seminar, what I'm trying to show is this is a review to how to install thing, or what are the things that we need to install in order to start programming with Android. So this is the basic welcome window of Android Studio. Here you can start a new project. In order to start a new project, I have tried to show some of its simplest way to start up with Android project inside the Android Studio. If you all who are right now listening to this would like to make few notes on how to like play with Android Studio with these points, then it will be easy for you all uh, in the next coming sessions. So if you mention or if you try to make note of this kind of points, these points that I'm trying to show over here, then you'll be able to go with simple speed in the next coming sessions. So in order to create a project, what you need to do is you need to open up new project or create a new project from the file menu where you can give names to your project, and there will be few buttons which will take you one step further. So after moving one step further, you can give application name, you can give company name, and you can store all the projects on some different directories. So this is just a review on how to, or this is just an introduction on how to use Android Studio, or how to open up a project, or how to create a project inside the Android Studio. So moving forward, you can see over here that the project you will be creating will be named Hello World project, or Hello World will be the project's name if you don't give any kind of name to the project. And this project will contain various different files which we will be discussing later on. This will create a lot of default file. You might get confused on your beginning time because there will be lots of default file which will have different extensions. So no need to worry about all those, because this webinar is intended to introduce you all with what are those files and what they actually will be doing. So moving forward, uh, if you look at the project which will be uh, like initializing with the steps I have just earlier mentioned over here, you will be creating a new project. You will be giving the name to the project. For example, if you don't make change to the project's name, it will be Hello World project in your Android Studio. And I have shown a simple screenshot over there which shows how your project folder will look. It will have a main app file, and this file will contain the entire application code, designs, everything will be inside of the app folder. Inside of the app folder, if you just try to look, then you'll find Java folder, manifest folder, test folder, resources folder, and other test resources folder. What Java folder will contain, or what Java folder contains, is basically the programming. Every codes of your uh, application or your project will be inside the Java file or Java folder. Inside the test, there will be a test folder on the newer version of Android Studio. So I have uh, written the test over there. The resources folder will also be in the newer version, but the screenshot over here is of the one step earlier version. So this screenshot is not showing the manifest, or I'm sorry, the resources folder over there. But if you look at the newer versions of Android Studio, there are Android 1.5 already available. So if you look at the Android resources folder, or uh, the test resources folder, you will be finding the XML file. I'll be discussing about those files later on. In the Java file or the Java folder, you will find r.java, which is the resources file, which contains the auto-generated code generated by your IDEs. The build config and main activity of Java will also be found inside the Java folder. The working mechanism and working process of these two files will be described to you in the coming sessions or in the coming webinars. The other folder outside of the app folder will be the Gradle script, which contains the Gradle build files, and this also will be introduced to you in the next session. There are different files, as I already said. R.java is inside the Java folder, which is auto-generated by APPT, which is Android Assets Packaging Tool, which generates the ID. The main aim of the APPT is to generate ID for different components, which will be developed during the phase of the development of Android application or development of the project. Whenever you make change to any kind of user interface or designs that you make, then the ID will be generated automatically. And these automatically generated IDs are actually generated by the APPT. So next time when we will be discussing about R.java, or whenever I'll be making changes in R.java or describing you all with R.java, then you shouldn't be getting confused about what R.java actually does. Because in this session, I'm trying to introduce you all with what R.java actually is and what it will be doing. So uh, this session will be uh, covering your basics towards Android Studio, towards uh, basic files, basic extension, different extensions inside Android Studio. So uh, you have to be clear from now on that R.java is the auto-generated file developed by APPT over here. Its main aim is to generate IDs for the components that you make, or for the new changes, IDs will be generated. So these IDs are actually generated by the R.java. And if this R.java is sometime accidentally uh, deleted, then you don't need to worry about it, because this R.java will get automatically created once your Android application is ready to get initialized or ready to execute. The generated ID can be used to perform action on the component. This means to say that the ID that the R.java file generates will be used to perform different kinds of actions inside of your design or inside of your project. So this ID will simply be used in order to make changes or make uh, action call to the different component inside of the project. If you look at the basic code of R.java, then this is how it looks like. Basically, the R.java is enclosed by a package according to your project name, and this R.java is, is nothing but a Java class. Every code is inside of this class. There are different other classes made inside of the class R. If you look at the class here, ATTR attribute class, drawable class, class ID, class layout, class menu, class string. There are different classes over here, and all these classes are actually initialized by the help of R.java. So R.java is in some way is ID generator, or it is a generator of your project's basics. This is what R.java is all about. It is this the all the codes that you are seeing here right here is the code which is automatically generated by the help of the Android Studio or by the help of any other IDE that can be used in order to develop Android Studio. So R.java is the auto-generated file which can be used, or which is used to generate ID. What I'm trying to say by ID is that if you look at the class drawable over here, you can see that the integer over there holds some hexadecimal values, which can be the ID, which is specifically the ID of that integer, that particular integer, which is generated by ID itself, and so on for the rest of other classes. The other Java doesn't stop over there. It has some more codes over here, which are also the auto-generated code. You don't need to go so deeply about the automatically generated code because these are all the codes that are developed by the software itself. The author Java file inside of the Java folder is build config.java, which is already or which is also the already generated code or auto-generated code which lies inside of the Java folder. It is given the name build config in Android Studio's latest version and some other config.java in the previous versions of Android Studio. It defines the building blocks. It means to say that it initializes the uh, UI or other configuration file of your application or of your project inside the Android Studio. If we move forward and give a look to build config.java, then this is how it looks like. It also situates that inside of your package. It is nothing but a class given the name build config. And if you again have a look at here, then there is a final boolean value which gives the true, that is boolean or binary one. The other things over here are also string, and some of them are only one of it is version code, which is an integer value. So integer value is initialized to 1. So this is nothing but the build config is nothing but a auto-generated code which is inside of this our package given the name build config, and it shows where your project actually is, and it initializes your project whether it can be or whether it is ready to get executed or not. So build config.java is simply the building block, or it's an initializer of your project. Now again, if you move towards uh, the next other Java file, then it is main activity. Main activity of Java is one of the important file of your project because this uh, file is one of the starter of your project. This file actually points how your project should run, or how your project uh, should uh, point towards the starter. I mean to say, your UI should have some starting point, or your project should have some starting point, which will be determined by the help of the main activity.java. It is also automatically created by the help of your IDE. It contains logical and Java code. Logical codes are inside of this particular main activity.java file. You can actually program your UI. This is actually the main programming block of your project, I would like to say, because with the help of main activity.java, you can give access to logical things inside of your project. If there are some button on your Android application, then this particular activity.java file can decide how your project or how that particular button is going to work, because you will be able to add Java code inside of that particular button over there. So this is one of the main logical point of your project. You can create other files like main activity.java, but what are we looking at right now is this is the surface of Android Studio, or surfacely we are going through the projects or Android Studio's basics. So this is automatically generated code where we can find main activity.java, which can be used to create basic codes for your project. If you look at the Gradle scripts, there are different file inside of Gradle scripts. So what this Gradle scripts does is it can have two different uh, build Gradle. There are two different files inside of the Gradle script with the same name, but these two file will have a different work. When you start your Android application project, you'll be able to know that these two file which have the same name will have different functionalities. So if you move forward and look at the build.gradle, then you can see that build script has two different levels of the file of build Gradle, which consists to build. That is, one is project level and the other is application level. By means of build.gradle, we can control with the help of one build.gradle, we can control uh, project level, and with the help of other, we can control application level. So project level and application level are two different things inside of Android Studio, which will be controlled by the help of uh, Gradle scripts, and inside of that Gradle script we'll have build.gradle, which will be controlling your project and the entire application of your project. It takes Android projects and compiles them. So once the project level and application levels are controlled, they can be compiled now, and with the help of build.gradle, the successful compilation of the project will make its installation file, which will be the Android application file, which is the Android APK files, which can be installed on our Android system. So Android device needs the perfectly compiled projects which can be developed by the help of build.gradle. So build.gradle is the file, or is the project's one of the module which can compile and make Android APK files. So if we move towards development of Android application in next sessions, you'll be seeing that there will be Gradle scripts which will show a couple of files over there, and you don't have to get confused, because those are simply the uh, system level files which will be playing with the systems in order to develop Android APK files. So you don't have to get scared by seeing those Gradle file over there, because we'll be using those files when it comes to deploying, or when it comes to compiling files. So this is why I'm telling this all previously, in order to be able to be ready for the development of Android application in the coming sessions. Apart from Java files, those activity files inside Java and other Gradle scripts, we will have a few more other files to look at, and those will be XMLs. XML are the extensive markup language files which can be used to design, or which can be used to develop user interface of Android application. This is also the building block of your application, because with the help of XML files you will be able to know, or you will be able to develop the user interface or the design for your Android application or Android project. With the help of Android manifest or only manifest or the XML file, you can make designs, or you can drag and drop buttons, you can uh, design buttons, you can design text fields, you can design everything with your XML file. You can drag or drop, you can write with the code. Everything you will be writing about your designs will be inside the XML file. The other thing that is inside the XML file is that this can read UI and it can give response to the user's input to that user interface. So this XML file is not only for uh, developing user interface or developing looks or giving graphical looks to your project, but also playing inside those user interface can be done with the help of the XML files. This can be also taken as background processor in your Android application. Your background processings will be taken up to the logical part with the help of XML. So it can also act as the breeze to your logical code, which will be written in .java file, and XML file, which will be your user interface displayer. So this can act as the bridge between the display or user interface and your Java files where you will be writing your codes. Broadcast receivers, which will be the interface. Broadcast receiver will be also known to you in the coming sessions. Also, the content providers and broadcast receivers. These are two things that you need to know surfacely before moving on to development of Android application. Broadcast receiver actually sends your uh, actions, or if you have an XML file, you will be able to develop. If you have XML file, you will be developing your UI with the help of XML, and in that UI, you will be developing buttons, you'll be developing text fields. With the help of button, you'll be trying to send information, some actions to your uh, backgrounds or to your backend, and those messages are broadcasted by the help of broadcast receivers, and content providers and gives uh, access to your request. If you click on a send button, then that send button or any kind of button will have some actions to process with it itself. Those actions will be broadcasted, and after the broadcast is complete, they needs those button or any kind of logical code will need to access some content which will be provided by the content providers. Those content providers may uh, carry data from database or any other data containers which will be provided by the help of content provider. So we will know all of this in detail when we will start actually coding for the application or Android projects. I was talking about the broadcast receiver and content providers in the previous slide. In this one, I have somehow tried to show you that how the click button sends its action to the other activity. There are a couple of devices over there, or you can assume this to be a single one, which shows a simple UI which consists of a click button. The click button, that is the user interface or your display in your Android device, consists of a click button which will be actually be designed in your XML file. And if you click on that particular click me button, you'll be able to send some information, or you'll be the click me button uh, will receive some kind of action when you click on that button. That means when you click on that button, that click me button will have to perform some activity. The first activity is accepted when a user clicks on that particular button. After the button is being clicked, you'll be sending some information to the back end that some uh, process is to be carried out, because user has already given information via the button. Now, if you move at the second activity is generated because of the first activity, because it was clicked. What I'm trying to say over here by this to first and second activity is that the first activity is also an UI, that is the user interface. And if you look at the second activity, which is also user interface, generated because of the first activity. The first activity was generated itself by the user interface. That user interface was created in an XML file. The second activity was possible only because it was moved by the first activity. Those two activities are designed in XML file but are processed because of the activity, because of the Java files, or because of the logical coding, because it sent it sent the instruction from the first activity to the second activity by the logical code, and the logical code was inside the click me button on that first activity. But the logical code came from, though the logical code came from the Java, but the logical code was processed only because of the user interface, and the user interface was designed on your XML file. So let it be clear to all of us that XML and Java are connected in our Android application development. XML will be giving you the user interface, UI, and it will be processed by the help of Java. If we move forward, then we'll be seeing that there will be my service, which will extend the service class. Extends is nothing but it's an interface which extends service, and service can provide communication. What my service can do is, my service is a class or any other class. You can give a name by yourself. My service can use the predefined methods and objects or any other variables values inside of my service. The main aim of service is to give notification, or is to communicate to different systems. If you look at the figure over there is activity manager, which will have some parameters from the activity class. And if you look forward to activity manager, it will have start instruction. This particular figure is somehow related to the figure that I have shown you in the previous slide, which consists of first and second activity. This figure over here is trying to display how the activity manager actually works. Activity manager works only if it receives some kind of activity. Those activities are only developed when you have user interface. User interface can directly interact with your user, which will be initialized when user will be interacting with the interface, and that is the activity. And now activity manager will start working when it receives the activity manager. And when the activity manager actually starts working, then it sends the start instruction. and the start instruction will move to the service which notifies or communicates different hardwares inside of your single Android device. Android device will have different sensors, different modules inside of it. For example, your wireless device, your camera, your microphones, etc., are the device which will be giving service to the user. And there's a binder over there. Binder is nothing but it's a bridge which can connect two different systems. For example, if there's an instruction, then uh, if there's an instruction to turn on the Wi-Fi module, then the binder does uh, carry the communication or the instruction up to the Wi-Fi module to turn it on or off. You will be knowing all of this in detail when you will move forward to the practical implementation of Android application development. There was a term broadcast receiver previously in the earlier slide. Uh, the broadcast receiver is a class which can be extended by any class. The broadcast receiver can broadcast a message. Here in figure, I have tried to show you how the broadcast receiver actually works. Broadcast receiver gets notified when intent happens, and it sends the signal to the Android system. It is actually the carrier of message which can notify your devices uh, on your Android system. I have written over the public class my receiver extends broadcast receiver, which consists of a method public void on receive, and it has two arguments, context and intent. Those two are the arguments which will be carried by the method void on receive. So broadcast receiver is a class which can carry your messages to the Android system. And the other is content providers. Content providers is the container of content. I mean to say content of resources. It can be data, it can be any kind of files, or it can be the data from database. Once the broadcast receivers sends or carries data or carries information, then it will be looking forward to the uh, communication or to the transportation of the data, and those data can be carried out from the content providers, which will be sending data to the needed place or needed arguments. This is also a predefined class of Android which can be extended to the class or the user-defined class. As I have written over there, public class my content provider extends content provider, which consists of a method, public void on create, which can be used to create an action. Let's uh, have a brief introduction to additional components for the development. To implement application components, we need to have different components like UI components. There are different UI components, like in order to view your Android application, or in order to make your Android application, you'll need to have uh, knowledge on how your user interface is actually created. Your Android application will have uh, distinct uh, looks according to your needs, according to your needs about how or what are the application scopes or what kind of application you are actually developing. So your application will have a look according to the requirement of your project or according to the scope of your project. Different kind of layout components, different kind of formats can be developed, and which all comes under the XML file. You can develop user interface. You can make it interact with your backend. You can make it interact with your user by the help of XML file. Those are under the layouts. There will be intents. This intent, the term intent, will be frequently used when we start to develop our application, and that intent is nothing but the messaging wiring component, or it's a message, the bridge of the message distributor. It acts as a bridge between different devices. You can send uh, information from one place to another or one devices to another when you have intent, or it's a wiring component. Resources, uh, we have seen about r.java in the earlier slides. There were r.java which will contain the strings, the constants, the integer variables, and different other variables. There will be manifest files. Manifest is nothing but a configuration file of an application. The manifest file will be pointing towards the starting of an application or the welcome page of your application. We have discussed a little bit about the XML file in the previous slides, that the XML is the UI generator. So if you give a look at the activity underscore main XML inside of your layout folder, which is again inside of the resources, then you'll be seeing that the Android XML file, the activity XML file of your project, will somehow be giving you a look like this. This contains its own predefined tags which will describe about your user interface, which will describe about the um, height, width of your project's UI. It can be different according to the different resolution screen of your Android device, but this is how you describe, or this is how those Android applications are actually made. The UI of those Android applications are made like this way. Uh, what Android consists of is its user interface, which is one of the most attractive thing or attractive part of your Android application, and that is actually developed by the help of the XML file. And the XML file is nothing but the code of your designs, which is developed in this manner. So moving forward, if you want to look at how your Android application is getting developed, then you can also switch to the design mode. As I have shown you over here, you'll have two options. Either you can drag and drop your components from the palette over there, You can simply drag and drop buttons, you can simply drag and drop text fields or any other things or any other components directly onto your project. Or if you want to modify some of them, or for example, if you have dragged and dropped a button over your project, and if you now want to modify that button, then you can switch to the text where you can simply play around with your codes so that you can make modification according to your code. So there, the option or the choice is yours, whether to go from the design point of view or from the text point of view. You can do either ways. You can develop your application either ways. So after having known about different extension of file, different configuration file, the Java files, XML file, Gradle scripts, and overall Android application surface or different tools so far, we'll now be moving towards the execution point. After your project is given a name, after your project is uh, developed, after your codes are final, it is compiled, application is completely compiled. Now you have to execute that project. I mean to say, you need to uh, give a look how your project will run on different devices. In order to do that, you'll have DDMS, which is the Dalvik Debug Monitor Service, which will allow you to develop your project into executable format. As we all know, the Android application extension is APK, which is the package. Android package will be the executable file for Android, uh, which is the DDMS is Dalvik Debug. Dalvik is nothing but it is a platform which makes your Android application be able to run on a lower power devices, because Android itself is a lower power device, and DDMS is something that makes your project or makes your project compatible to run along with the lower power devices. So this DDMS is integrated inside of your Android Studio, so it will be uh, easier task for you to actually simulate your operating system, your computer system with the Android system. With the help of DDMS, you can see how your project will be executed on most of the Android devices inside of your Windows, Mac, or Linux. This is how the Android Studio makes your development one step more powerful, because by integration of DDMS inside of Android Studio, it gives you the opportunity to develop and to view your application inside of your project. So this much for this session, and in coming session we'll be reviewing this session's content in brief, and we'll go towards the practical implementation of all the things that we have discussed right now. So from the next session we'll be uh, putting our hands together in order to develop the Android application. Practically, we'll be looking at how Android application will be developed, and we'll be reviewing all of our contents that we have discussed currently. So see you guys in the next session. Please feel free to send your questions to the email address and the contact number that you have on your screen right there. We'll be seeing you in the next session. Thank you very much.